4 articles of impeachment have been filed against Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota. This is obviously following the whole fraud scandal.
What we have here is Article 1, violation of oath of office through concealment of fraud. Article 2, interference with oversight of investigations. Article 3, prioritizing political considerations over lawful administration. And Article 4, failure to steward public funds, which I think of all of them, I feel like Article 4 is on its face the most easily provable, based off especially the whistleblowers that have said multiple times that they were made aware of this and yet did nothing.
Because that's the big one. The big one that you really look at it, and obviously they're saying concealment of fraud, all these things. But the one thing we can at least probably all agree on is that the oversight was just simply not there.
Right.
That no one was really checking up on it, or the people that were checking up on it weren't doing a very good job at it. So you're right. When it comes to Article 4, failure to steward public funds, I mean, I think negligence is very easily provable in this moment. Now, the others are a little bit more political. We'll see what they say. We'll see where it ends up. But there's also an interesting thing where you told me, Will, that the people who would be deciding on this, the majority are Republicans.
That's right. So when you look at it, how does impeachment work in Minnesota? We are very familiar here with impeachment in the U.S. House of Representatives on the national level. Well, it's very similar in the state level in Minnesota. So articles of impeachment based off of Article 8 of the Minnesota Constitution, they begin, as it does federally, in the state House of Representatives. And impeachment is brought there, and then it is decided through a concurrence of the House of Representatives. A majority, simple majority is all you need to get there. Right now, the breakdown in the Minnesota House, they have 134 potential seats. The Republicans hold 67. The Democrats have 65, and there are 2 vacant seats. So as of right now, the Republicans have a 2-seat majority, meaning there is a pathway where this could not just be articles of impeachment introduced, but an impeached governor, which then goes to trial in the Minnesota Senate. Now, the breakdown there are 34 Democrats and 33 Republicans, so a majority held by Democrats. However, very similar to what we have in the U.S., Senate needing a conviction on the presidential level, you have to have a trial and then a conviction by 2/3 of the senators present. So a little bit harder hurdle.
Unlikely, but it does say proceedings could get underway next month. That's when the House reconvenes, and the state would hold a trial and determine, as you said, whether he is guilty in order to be potentially removed from office. But in general, we know that this process is not fun for anyone to be involved in. So it does beg the question of how far can even just the threat, the loom of having a impeachment trial, what does it mean for you? Now, Tim Walz has obviously said not guilty, and he's obviously said, I'm not going anywhere. He's been pretty clear about that.
What is interesting and what does differ from the U.S. Constitution when it comes to impeachment is Section 3. Section 3 of Article 8 of the Minnesota Constitution says suspension. No officer shall exercise the duties of his office after he has been impeached and before his acquittal. So what it appears to read here is that the Constitution allows for the suspension of, it would appear, the governor or any officer that has been impeached while they are awaiting the adjudication through the trial in the Senate. And then if they are acquitted, resume their duties. If they are not acquitted, obviously they are removed from office. So I feel like that caveat there makes it a lot more higher stakes than it necessarily is in the U.S. Impeachment in the federal level, because of that suspension level. Now, they do have to serve the individual after they have been impeached within 20 days. I feel like it'll be a lot quicker than that, where they would deliver the articles of impeachment. But once again, we've seen how a federal trial in the U.S. Senate at that level of impeachment, it takes time. They impeached the president in that first term. Then there was a little bit of delay of when the articles of impeachment were marched over to the Senate. Then they get it all set up. And then it took several weeks. So potentially at the time where you are seeing a lot of chaos in Minnesota, not just at the level of the fraud issue, but with all of the ICE things, all of the stuff that's going on, that they could be potentially without a governor being suspended during this time for a matter of weeks.
Yeah, so does that push this situation where Tim Walz, who already announced to be running again, does this push him to potentially decide to step aside? There's 4 articles of impeachment here. One of them we feel like is pretty darn clear, which is failure to steward public funds, which is essentially neglecting his job and making sure public funds were spent appropriately. Now, you go through fraud, covering fraud, all those things. Those are a bit more speculative. There will have to be a trial. There will have to be evidence. But it is not fun to go through this. And I feel maybe for Tim Walz only in that this is not a fun process to put you and your family through. But you know what? The people in Minnesota clearly have had enough. I also think this shows the broad scale of American politics when it comes to these states, because you think of Minnesota as a pretty blue state in terms of, yes, there's been times where it's gone more Republican. It is more, maybe you could say it's Midwestern, blue collar. It definitely isn't as full blown as you'd expect. But when you actually look at the House and the way that they are going, there's more Republicans at this point that counterbalance what's going on. It's much like many states. It's kind of a 50-50, 60-40 kind of situation.
Well, and on national level, yes, it is definitely more of a blue state. You don't see it as a type of swing state like Michigan has been, like Wisconsin has been recently, of those Midwest states.
It kind of feels like it should be.
And once again, even their Democrat Party there is the Democrat Farm Labor Party. It's not even the Democrat Party of Minnesota. It has its own unique name, the Farm Labor Party, which is interesting because I feel like the majority of those in agriculture in Minnesota are no longer represented by the Democrat Party as it is today, and especially with how liberal and how far left it's gone. There's a lot of rural area in Minnesota, but yes, the population centers are still very liberal. When it comes to a national election, a federal election, they are typically going to go more blue, but you do have to realize when you're talking about micro level representation, you are talking about people being able to select their representatives in a state house. Yeah, they probably are going to have a lot more option for conservative representation in the state. And that's what you see here with 134 potential seats in the House of the Minnesota Representatives. There are 67 Republicans. There are 65 with the Democrat Party, and then 2 vacant seats, meaning, if the Democrats pick those up in a special election or something, you're tied. Yeah. At very best, you're tied in this Minnesota State House. So it is a fascinating thing. As it stands, there is a 2-seat majority by Republicans. That means there is just on partisan lines, a very good chance that Governor Tim Walz, in an election year, remember, he just dropped out of the race. Yeah. So
he's going to be done.
This is going to be a stain on the party as well, that he could be impeached during this election year.
I want to take a call coming in from Minnesota. Let's go to Jason. You're on the air.
I just want to say the people of Minnesota has seen this coming for a long time. We've seen the fraud, even at the county level. We've seen it for years. It's a joke that we talk about at the bar. We're just ready to be over and done with this. Yeah. We know it's there. We just want it to be over and done with. We're sick and tired of it.
I guess that's going to be the definition of what does over and done with it mean, because you could have over and done with it. He's impeached. You could have over and done with it as Tim Walz is going to be out in 8 months anyway, or 10 months anyway.
Well, and I have a question for you, Jason, as well, because once again, Tim Walz was running for re-election. Now he's trying to open up for a potential different Democrat candidate to retain the governorship there. Are you hearing a lot of people that are fed up with the party, not just Tim Walz, that want to see a difference and a change in leadership in the state?
Yes, I've been hearing it from a lot of people, but a lot of people are terrified of Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah.
They know that's who's going to be running next, and they're terrified of it. And I'm from northern Minnesota, and we know that we don't matter. It's Minneapolis and St. Paul. That's all that matters. And we're sick of it. We're sick of all the fraud. We're sick of them shipping voters in, because that's what it amounts to.
Well, and Jason, and that's what we were basically referencing earlier. There's a lot of rural area, a lot of other places in Minnesota that aren't necessarily seen as getting representation on the national stage. when it comes to congressmen, when it comes to their senators. But when it comes to the local representation, that's why you see it a lot closer in the state house and even in the Minnesota Senate. They only have a 1-seat majority, the Democrats. But as Jason points out, the big name that people are referencing is Amy Klobuchar, who is the senator from Minnesota currently, obviously has won statewide elections there before.
A nationally known name.
Exactly. And when it comes to name recognition alone, being on ballot for a governor race, I think Jason pointed out very well, and I'm glad that he called in, that, yeah, if you are a conservative, that probably is the name you are scared of. You're not scared of them going further left on paper like some of the representatives that you've seen there. You know, the attorney general there being Keith Ellison. You know that that is the state where Ilhan Omar is a representative from. I don't think that the state probably is as concerned about them going on paper that far left, but it is when you have an establishment Democrat like Amy Klobuchar that could potentially win the governorship.